Hey, so we're here with Angelo, one of our best clients. Angelo, we've been working together for a couple months now. We started beginning of this year. It's about 4 months out. We got you funded, but we want to hear your story. How'd you get here? What were you looking for? And did we deliver? How did that end up?
So one big thing that convinced me, because remember I was very much on the fence about this in the beginning, is when you highlighted all the rebates and cash back that you get. Like I completely forgot about that, where they have the sign up bonuses of spend 3K in the first 3 months, you get 750 back, spend 5K in the first 6 months, you get 15,000 points, all that stuff. And I personally really like to accumulate all those things. And then after so many of these rebates and discounts, then not only does it pay for your service as a whole, but in addition to that, you have good credit, good business credit, and also like six figures in available credit. So it all really helps in the long run. And then I did have a bunch of expenses that came up, which basically allowed me to travel on business class with all this credit around the world and back. So it was well worth it. Also, too, in addition to that, I haven't mentioned is that I had a high utilization percentage on my personal credit. So I was paying a decent amount in interest fees every month. So this business credit provided a lot of fresh air and breathing room for me to be able to not worry about it for the first 12 months. And because of that, I personally, when I'm doing transatlantic and transpacific flights, I really just prefer flying business class because it's just more comfortable, right? So it allowed me to travel the world and back in comfort, as well as not have to worry about increasing my utilization. In addition to that, you also did help me lower my utilization to from something like 50 or 60% down to 5%, which is quite huge. And then pretty much overnight, I saw my credit score go from like high 600s to high 700s, like 770, 780 or something like that.
And then right after that, basically, we were ready to get you funded. And when we got that
Yeah.
utilization down, how long was the funding process? We were like, okay, Angelo, it's funding day. We had a funding call, and how much did we get on that call?
On that call, we got upwards of 80 to 90K. And then with follow-ups, like immediately, like
Yeah.
instantly approved.
Yeah, that day I think we almost hit almost 100 to the
Almost
count.
100.
And then with the increases, you remember the approvals that came in after, and with the increases, what was the total?
It was about 120K total. It was
Yeah,
amazing.
nice.
But just that first day of boom, you're approved, boom, you're approved, boom, boom, boom. It's like, wow, what do I do with all this credit?
That's the problem our clients face is they don't know what to do with the money, and that's the best problem to have is when you have so much money you don't know what to do with it. And
Yeah, exactly. And in addition to, it's not, I'm not being reckless with it. I'm not using it just for flights and stuff, but like when you do as much traveling as I do and deal with a lot of this business partners that I do, then you do see an upwards return. Similarly to how like if you run Google ads or Facebook ads and you increase the budget in order to increase your revenues, right? The more traveling I do and the more connections I make, then the more revenues I'm seeing in various different industries, not just YouTube, but also the different finance industries that I'm involved in and all that.
so you're more comfortable basically taking risks in your business now because you have this
Mhm.
credit. Because this money's
100%.
cheap, you're not as stressed taking that flight, whereas before maybe there might have been hesitations or
Yeah, it would have been a little. I still would have done it, but it just wouldn't have felt as I wouldn't have been as trigger happy.
yeah. You
Yeah,
get into that flow state of like, you're just buying things for your business because you know you need them. You're just doing all the right actions. And that's where we want to get our clients to. Like, we want everyone to be like you, where they're flying, they're handling their business, and they're not worried about the money aspect. They know that the money that they spend, it's coming back. And
one
the
hundred
risk
percent.
you get lucky. You feel a little luckier with the credit.
I do. Yeah.
So what kind of goals do you have, with your business, with finances going forward? And how are you hoping to use credit inside those?
Before I get to that point, I'm still at the point where I have to figure out how to spend all this money, which is a good problem to have, right? Like basically I have another 40 to 60K that I have to figure out what to do with. And I love having this problem, right? Figuring out like the way you put it is, oh, now you have the fun part of trying to figure out where to spend all this money. And that's before we go into the second round of funding,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
So
right.
that's
We,
great.
we we'll make sure that we don't get you more funding before you don't need it. But you bring up a good question I want to think about is how do you figure out what you want to spend money on? Like, what's your process? Like, how do you figure out what you want to spend your money on?
So as you may already know, I'm quite a risk taker, and I don't know what the word is, but the complete opposite of risk averse. I'm used to taking big risk.
Yeah.
So a lot of it I will put into the financial markets, be it stocks and ETFs or crypto, and that's what I plan on doing with it. And the way I see it is that based on a lot of my fundamental analysis, and also in addition to the traveling I've been doing and talking to a lot of experts, the more that I put into this, the more it's going to explode. And so I'm not worried about any returns to be able to pay off any of the credit or loans back because I know it's going to do well. In addition to that, too, I'm thinking about using some of this funding to purchase some real estate down here in Colombia, maybe like a nice big farm or a big villa, which then I rent out on Airbnb and get some of that money back in terms of returns. So pretty much I would be using this money not just for my main business, which is YouTube, but also diversifying into other industries like stocks, ETFs, crypto, and perhaps real estate and vacation rentals. So I to be honest, when you were first presenting this to me, and I was thinking, is it worth it or not? I was running the calculations, and I was very meticulous about the ROI and seeing if it logically makes sense. I was hesitant about it, but I was being very short-sighted, and I didn't realize like what was crazy to me is when we had the funding round, and my mind it like blew my mind because it's like seeing the Matrix now and taking the red pill of oh
You're
this is
controlling it finally. You
yeah.
finally are touching it, and it's bending to your will when you're getting
Correct.
the approvals.
Correct. And that's not something that you can easily realize on just an initial call. It's not until you dive in with you, Dan, that all these possibilities and creative endeavors the dots start connecting, right? And you have just an entire universe of possibilities that you can do things with.
That was beautiful. I mean, I don't think I've ever gotten a better testimonial. Like that's what it's all about. It's about, showing you how you can connect the dots in your life and giving you the ink so you can draw that easily. And you're not worried about, oh, is my pen going to run out of ink? It's bottomless. It's a bottomless fountain pen. You can scribble, you can do whatever you want, pen whatever. Pen's
Exactly.
mightier than the sword.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
that's
Good enough.
credit's more powerful than cash because with credit, you have to know how to use it. It's money that you don't have. When you spend money that you don't have, you better spend it right because we know what happens if you don't. But we
Yeah.
want to spend it right here. We'll try and help you make sure that you spend it right. But you don't need too much help. So Angelo, it's been a pleasure. Anything else you want to let people know? About working with us, about Lucky Credit, the whole process.
You know what? I have some basic questions about the second round of funding. But to be quite honest, the first round was such a surprise and was a lot of fun because it was such a surprise that I don't want to spoil it for the second round. So let's just leave it as is.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, it's getting the money like is the most fun day. Like that's what people come here for. And we'll probably post some videos of like a funding call so people can understand like what really happens. You really get the money. Like you really been spending the money that we got on that funding day. That 6 figures of funding, you've been using it. Like you didn't have to use
100%.
any of your other money because you have this at 0% and you just have a little tiny monthly payment that takes care of that.
Well, that's a good point that you bring up too, because I have my money and I have my regular income and I have my savings, and then I'm putting all just my expenses here, right? And I'm spending all this money that you got me access to, but it's nice to be able to see my own money and my investments just get leveraged and grow at a much faster rate than what I'm spending on. So it just allows for so many possibilities.
Yeah, and when you visualize it like that, it's like you have your money, you have your assets, they're working for you. They're making you money. You don't
Mhm.
need to use this money in your business anymore. You're using someone else's money. So someone
Yep,
else's money, you know how to use it. So you use it and make money. And then
exactly.
you put that profit back into your asset pile. This keeps growing. Normal people, they have to use this. They have to save up. This is their time. They have to throw it here and risk it. But here, knowing credit, you don't have that problem anymore. You
Yeah,
use someone else's money. You make
yeah,
money.
exactly.
And then you keep it.
It's more fun to spend someone else's money and to grow your own money.
That's it. That's it. People don't want to do it. People they don't understand. They're like, no, I gotta grind. This is all my savings. Like, people are very stubborn these days with business. They're like, I want to do it all by myself. I want to fund it all by myself. I'm not going to go to a bank. And that ego will get them hurt. It's like, don't make your life any more difficult. Starting a business is already difficult. Getting that
Mhm,
plaque that you have in the back, like that took years. Like that's
mhm,
not you get a credit card and you do that. It's,
mhm.
you had a lot of talents, you had a lot of skills, and now we put a little leverage on top of that, and it just accelerates. It's just putting more octane in the gas.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. There's one very successful business person that you and I both know, which is actually he's the reason why you and I know each other, right? And he said one of his lessons is do not be afraid to get into debt and do not be afraid to take care of yourself first, because in any business they will be cutthroat and they will cut your head off in any instant that they can if it means it's for their own benefit. So you got to take care of yourself first and get the money in your bank before you worry about their risk that they're taking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. You need that security to know you're covered. No one's going to save us. Like when we're in business, we have businesses. There's no one that comes to us when we run out of money and they're like, here, try again. Like
Yeah.
you might have a connection if you're very lucky, but for the most part, most people don't have that. You have to, you fall, you go get a job, you save up and we go back. But with credit, it lets you dip into the red a little bit sometimes.
Mhm.
I've been in the red in my life. Before things start taking off, you're in the red a little bit, and you have to spend to get off the ground. It takes a lot of gas to get an airplane into the sky, but a little bit less to keep it there. So it's similar with credit. We get your profile, we juice it up, we launch it, and then we don't have to speak every day. You call me, and once every week, you're like, I don't know what to do with this money, and I'm like, all right, this sports car just came out. We can find ways to spend the money.
Yeah, and that's a good point, right? What you said about how people want to bootstrap their own businesses and work and save and all that stuff. And then you can get just lines of credit, use that and use other people's money to start your business. That's a clear difference to me between a poor person's mentality and a rich person's mentality. By running with your services, you're automatically getting a front seat to the rich person's mentality.
Exactly. You have to know where you have leverage. Like, don't apply leverage in areas of your life where you don't need it. If you're not a sports car driver and you don't like cars, there's no reason to buy a sports car. If you trade crypto every day for a living, there's no reason to buy stocks. You know, there's so many things, and for each of us, it's going to be different. But being inside the community and everything, you'll get ideas. There's 100 million different ways to make money,
Mhm.
and credit's a good way to find those ideas. Even if you don't know how to make money, you can still use your credit to find ways to make money.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And that's where the fun comes in.
That's the most fun part of it all is when you're finding out how to make money.
Yeah.
People will they're gonna start making money and then they're gonna miss the days where they didn't make any money because you have to be really creative when you don't have money. Like when you have money, you can just buy things. You just buy the website. When you don't
Yeah.
have money, you have to figure out how to rig it all together, how to record a video in like a room using a Mexican market microphone and hope to God that it works. But then you get credit, then you get money. You can spend it on whatever you want, but you have to have that knowledge of how to spend it because you can spend 10 grand for the same product and get a completely different thing. You got to train yourself how to spend it. So